This is a recorded presentation for the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission and the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council's public information and scoping document for the recreational sector separation and data collection amendment to the bluefish and summer flounder, scup, and black sea bass fishery management plans. My name is Chelsea Toohey, and I'm the Fishery Management Plan Coordinator for summer flounder, scup, and bluefish at the Commission. And I'm joined today by Kylie Dancy, who is a Fishery Management Specialist at the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council and one of the staff leads on this action. This presentation will cover an overview of the scoping process and background on this action, followed by an overview of the issues covered by the scoping document, and we'll end the presentation today with an overview of how you can provide public comment. Starting off with an overview of what is scoping, the Commission's and Council's scoping process is the first step in the development of an amendment and is intended to provide the public an opportunity to identify and provide input on major issues. The scoping process asks the public how you would like to see the identified issues addressed through management, and the scoping document is meant to provide information to the public on what specifically we are looking for feedback on, and the document again provides a broad overview of the issues that have been identified for consideration up to this point. There are also a series of questions to help guide your public comment. Specific management options and alternatives have not been identified at this point in the process. However, after the scoping period, the Commission's Interstate Fisheries Management Program Policy Board and the Council will direct the Plan Development Team and Fishery Management Action Team to develop draft options for the amendment. Once the draft amendment is approved by the Policy Board and Council, there will be a second public comment period and public hearings before the Council and Board take final action. Summer flounder, scup, black sea bass, and bluefish are managed jointly by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission in state waters, which is 0 to 3 miles from shore, and the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council in federal waters, which is greater than 3 miles. The Commission and the Council work together to develop most aspects of fishery management plans for the 4 species, and comments received on this public information and scoping document will be presented to both the Council and the Policy Board at their next joint meeting in April. The sector separation and data collection amendment was originally initiated back in October 2020 as part of a comprehensive effort to address summer flounder, scup, black sea bass, and bluefish recreational management issues known as the Recreational Reform Initiative. The amendment was later put on hold to prioritize the development of other management actions such as the Harvest Control Rule and the follow-up action to the Harvest Control Rule, which is still ongoing, known as the Recreational Measure Setting Process Framework and Addenda. Development of the recreational sector separation and data collection amendment was resumed in December of 2024 when the Council and Commission approved the scoping and public information document for public comment. The scoping document considers 2 major issues for public comment. The first issue is to consider managing for-hire recreational fisheries separate from shore and private fishing modes, also known as sector separation. And the second issue is to consider tools to enhance and/or supplement recreational data collection and improve the use of this data. So now we're going to cover each of the issues in more detail, starting with the first issue of sector separation. So recreational fisheries for summer flounder, scup, black sea bass, and bluefish include a for-hire sector, which includes headboats and charter vessels, and a private recreational sector, which includes anglers fishing from shore or private or rental boats. These sectors are currently managed using a single harvest target with performance and accountability measures applied collectively to the entire recreational sector. In many cases, recreational measures, meaning bag size and season limits, are applied to the recreational fishery as a whole. However, the for-hire and private sectors have differing preferences and motivations and different data collection and reporting requirements. So for example, federally permitted for-hire operators are required to submit electronic vessel trip reports and have expressed a desire for that data to be better utilized in the management process. And the private recreational sector does not have similar reporting requirements. So given these differences, managing the 2 recreational sectors separately could allow for more tailored management approaches with measures that are intended to better align with the unique characteristics of each sector. However, sector separation could introduce complexity to the management process, and some stakeholders have expressed concerns that it would create regulation imbalances, potential conflicts, and perceived inequity with within the recreational fishing community. And it may require the use of recreational data that becomes more uncertain when it is broken down at a finer scale, such as by sector. So specific options for sector separation have not yet been developed, as we are not in that stage of the amendment process yet, but the document does include some general approaches and ideas of how sector separation may work to give the public an idea of what options might look like. This list is not intended to be limiting at this stage in the process, but is just intended to spark public comment on the issue. So the first idea of how sector separation could be accomplished is separate allocations for the for-hire versus private modes of the fishery. And there are several ways that you could do separate allocations for these fisheries, such as through the creation of separate annual catch limits, also known as ACLs, or sub-ACLs or harvest limits. The second approach could look like separating management measures, so setting different size, season, and bag limits for the different components of the fishery. And this is already done to some extent with bluefish, which has mode-specific measures. And then summer flounder, scup, and black sea bass have separation of management measures for some states, down at the state level. This amendment, there could be consideration of a more uniform approach to this or guidelines for the development of separate measures for the different sectors. If this is the preferred approach, we may not need to develop a full amendment to do this, but that will be explored further after the scoping process. And then other approaches to sector separation may also be considered through the scoping and public comment process. There are several questions in the document where the policy board and council are asking for feedback, and these questions are intended to help guide public comments. The questions are: 1, do you believe recreational sector separation should be explored for these fisheries? Why or why not? 2, which sector separation approaches do you think would be most appropriate and why? 3, if sector separation is pursued, should the council and commission consider setting limits on the ability to obtain or retain for-hire permits? And 4, what else should be considered relative to sector separation? So that wraps up the first issue, and I'll now pass it over to Kylie, who will cover the second issue.
Chelsea, the second issue that the council and commission intend for this action to address is recreational data collection and use. So this issue has been proposed to be addressed in this amendment because managers recognize that we have a lot of challenges with our current recreational catch estimation methods and data sources. Catch estimation for these fisheries is inherently difficult. All of these recreational fisheries are open access, meaning there are not limits on the number of participants in these fisheries. For all of these species, there's a high degree of recreational effort with millions of trips and millions of anglers targeting these species each year. Angler behavior varies widely and can be difficult to account for. And for these fisheries, there are no existing reporting requirements for private anglers fishing from shore or private vessels. Recreational data has been a very prominent concern of managers and the public, with many expressing concerns about the accuracy, precision, and variability of the estimates generated through the Marine Recreational Information Program, or MRIP. And it's apparent that many stakeholders lack confidence in the estimates and the underlying data used to generate the estimates. And as such, there's been a lot of interest in exploring options for improving or supplementing recreational data collection for these species. When considering the recreational data collection and use approaches, there have been a few ideas suggested in prior conversations by stakeholders and managers. At this stage, we're looking for input on which of these ideas to continue to explore, if any. Previously, it's been suggested that mandatory recreational reporting requirements could be developed for all anglers, including private and shore anglers. Other ideas have included alternative harvest programs, such as tag or stamp programs that are used in other regions or for other species. And that would require a certain level of reporting to receive access to such a tag or stamp program. The details of how that would work have not been thoroughly developed, but it could be developed as a special access program or for all anglers. Another approach that could be considered is enhanced for-hire vessel trip report, or VTR, requirements, if there are ways that enhanced VTR data collection could allow us to make better use of that data. Voluntary reporting or citizen science programs have also been frequently suggested as a way to supplement our existing data streams. And finally, there could be other approaches identified through scoping that could address this issue. So again, we're looking for your feedback and other ideas. And we also wanted to note that the Council and Commission recognize that there has been a lot of work on these issues on the East Coast and around the country. And so we will be referring to lessons learned from exploration of these approaches in other fisheries. We do want to note that this amendment would be looking for ways to improve or supplement recreational data collection and use within the Council and Commission's system and within their purview, including looking at modifications to the fishery management plans or other Council and Commission programs that could enhance data collection. However, our main source of recreational data for these species is the Marine Recreational Information Program, and the Council and Commission do not have the ability to directly change the MRIP estimation methodologies through this type of action. We do expect that MRIP data will continue to be considered best scientific information available for these species and will continue to be used in management, although it may be supplemented in the management process with other sources if appropriate. The Council and Commission will continue to work with NOAA Fisheries on improvements to MRIP, recognizing that this is a very important piece of this equation. And we also wanted to acknowledge that there is some current ongoing work by NOAA Fisheries to potentially improve and change the MRIP estimates, including an ongoing evaluation of revisions to the fishing effort survey based on the results of a 2023 pilot study showing that changes to the way the survey is administered might improve recall and reduce bias. So currently there's testing being done of this methodology, evaluating side-by-side testing with the current methodologies, and there's a possibility that this could result in revised catch and effort estimates for these and other species. If that happens, those revised estimates would be available in 2026 at the earliest, and we wanted to note that that could impact options developed under this amendment, depending on what type of options are ultimately considered. Specifically, it may be relevant to the sector separation piece of this amendment if we are using MRIP data in the development of sector separation options. In the scoping document, we've included the following questions to help the public think about input on this issue. First, how do you think recreational data collection could be improved, particularly related to actions that the Council and Commission could take within our plans and programs? Do you think private and shore reporting requirements or voluntary reporting programs should be considered in this amendment? Why or why not? Do you think revisions to for-hire data collection are needed? And if so, what type of changes should be considered? And then what else should the Council and Commission consider relative to recreational data collection and catch estimation for these species? A tentative amendment timeline is included in this table, starting with the scoping period that we're in now. Currently, we're holding scoping hearings and collecting written comments through March 20th. The Council and Commission will review scoping comments received at their joint meeting in April and determine the scope of the action and discuss what types of approaches should be considered. Following that meeting, the Fishery Management Action Team and Plan Development Team will develop an initial draft range of options this summer. The Council and Policy Board will likely review those draft alternatives later in the summer and provide feedback on how they should be refined. And we have a goal of approving a range of alternatives for a public hearing document by the end of 2025, with a public hearing document to be developed tentatively in early 2026 for public hearings to be conducted in the spring of 2026. Final action is estimated to occur in the summer or fall of 2026, followed by federal rulemaking and comment periods, and any changes would be effective likely sometime in mid-2027. So overall, we are currently planning on about a 2-year timeframe for amendment development. We have 5 public scoping hearings scheduled for this action between February 25th and March 5th, including 3 webinar-only hearings and 2 hybrid hearings with both a webinar and an in-person component. And in addition to, or instead of making comments during a hearing, you can also submit written comments through a few different means. We have an online comment form set up at the link on this slide, or you can email comments directly to me at kdancy@mafmc.org, or send comments via mail to Chris Moore at the Council office. If possible, please include a reference to the amendment in your comments so we can be sure that the comments are intended for scoping on this action. And the deadline for written comments is 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, March 20th. For additional information on this amendment, you can visit the action page at the link shown here. This page has the public information and scoping document, as well as additional background information and other documents. It also has contact information for Council and Commission staff on this amendment, and the scoping and public information document contains all of that information I showed on the previous slide about how to submit comments. Information for the public hearings is available on both the commission and council web pages on our respective calendar pages. And we also have this YouTube recording available on both the council and commission's pages. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you for your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions.